Hello, welcome to part 2 of our Negan Basics Guide. Reminder that this is game version 4.2. In this part, we're going to talk more about strategy and go over some basic game plan elements, which will build on the essential tools we already went over. We'll also suggest some players to check out and cap it off with a brief character summary. Don't forget about all the resource links I mentioned in part 1. Those may be very useful to you, especially if you are brand new to the game. I've included those once again in the video description below. But enough of that, let's get going. Negan's lone stance is thankfully pretty straightforward and also really powerful. To get to it, you can either press 3+4 or use one of the transitions. Down forward forward 2 is the only transition that will take you to INT with plus frames on block, but all your transitions will give you plus frames on hit, which is important since that will mean you should always be able to interrupt in some way if they decide to challenge your slower INT attacks. If you want to get out of stance, just press 3+4. In terms of actions, the first thing to note is that it has an auto counter attack against lows. For it to activate, you cannot be doing anything. INT has a forward and backward walk, and if you're doing either, the counter won't happen. This is important because you can block an INT, but doing so means you're turning off the low counter. Also, strictly speaking, it is an attack, so you might encounter rare situations where it whiffs or something. Still, as soon as you enter INT, the auto counter becomes live, so you can use 3+4, which again is your manual transition, as an instant anti-low option. You can't block right away when transitioning to INT, so the low counter is in fact faster than blocking. Regardless, this is an important tool because, like we mentioned in Essential Moves, Negan has a pretty weak crush game, especially low crushes, so using this auto counter is a very good, viable alternative to a parry or a low crush. Moving on to actual attacks, your fastest move is INT1, a safe mid with an unsafe knockdown splatting confirmable second hit. Definitely try to confirm the second hit when you can, but of course it's also there as a threat if they're not respecting INT1 on block. Your next fastest move is INT1+2, which is only 1 frame slower at I-15, but it's also way more versatile. It's homing, it's a launcher, it's a power crush, and it's safe. The only real weakness it has is that it's a high. If anything, INT1 is most useful as a check for people trying to duck INT1+2. Either way, you'll be using INT1+2 a lot. Once things slow down, it's mix-up time. Your main low threat is INT down 2, an unparryable I-21 low. Chunky damage, +3 on hit, and a big +13G on counter hit. -13 on block, so can be pretty risky against certain characters, but still very solid reward. For your mid, you have a few in that same speed range you can mix with. INT2 is a slam on hit and +7 on block. INT3 and 4 are similar in that they're both safe, both leave you in stance, and both counter hit launch. Biggest difference is that INT4 hits grounded and will knock down on normal hit, whereas INT3 is ultra safe at -2, so it's a great setup tool for INT1+2. If you want more reward, INT down forward 2 is your super risky launch option. You actually do also have an unbreakable grab with INT1+3, but be mindful that it's slower than all your other options, and there's an audio cue that happens during the startup. It's still useful to test your opponent with since it's an easy knockdown splat on hit, but speed is definitely a weakness. Regardless, INT2 is probably the most common option since you'll get either some decent reward on hit or you get to keep pressuring if they block it. INT3 and 4 are more for catching slower counter hits. And then of course, if you want to make the hard read, INT down forward 2 will get you your big launch. Note that you do also have an unblockable from INT, but I wouldn't focus too much on that when you start out. Just be aware that it has some neat traps that you can look up if you want. Again though, no matter how you get into the stance, the strategy is always the same. Either make your interrupt read with INT1 or 1+2, or go into your mix-up. Simple, but very powerful. Negan is an oddball in that he's a really strong fundamental character, but with a couple of quirks. The first is that he doesn't have really any of the typical counter hit or keep out tools that you normally see. No magic 4, no I-12 power combo, no fast pure counter hit launcher. He does have 4-2, but that's still not quite the same realm of reward that we're talking about. Now he does still have really nasty counter hits like 4-2, down 2, back 2-3, etc. But these aren't true replacements for the traditional keep out moves moves that you normally see, mostly because they're not as fast or evasive, and they don't give even a counter hit launch that you might normally expect with such tools. Instead, he has a really good 1-2 combo with multiple strong options after. He has a really strong whiff punisher in down forward 2, he has a power crush launcher, and a nasty low reversal type move with the INT low counter. But he's also missing those typical crush tools most characters have, like a hop kick or high crushing sweep. He has nothing that could be considered a hop kick replacement, and all of his high crushes are pokes. In exchange, so long as you're not mindlessly swinging with something risky like his power crush or down forward 2, his risk reward is really good. He has a ton of safe moves that hit really hard, including multiple safe launchers, and a lot of his primary attacks are with his bat, which is unreversible by standard reversals. The low bat attacks are particularly important because every character has the universal low parry, which is useless against the bat. The universal low parry is very strong, which is why every character has it, so eliminating that as an option really bolsters his offense. Thanks to the bat, his overall range is a lot better than most characters too. But those notes aside, Negan is a pretty simple character. You're going to lean on his jabs, his down forward 1, and his toe kick. Then you're going to look for a down forward 2 whiff punish opportunity or pressure with one of your many strong mids. If you need to break a turtle, down back 2 is a good threat, but his INT down 2 is incredibly strong, and given how easy it is to get to his stance, it's something you will regularly want to bring into play. Although a smart opponent will be looking for that, his INT mids are so strong that you can overuse those to make INT down 2 even more valuable. So INT as a stance is crazy good, and once you land a juggle, Negan has both great damage and great wall carry. But the irony is that despite his simplicity, you have a lot of flexibility in how you want to play. You can play pure neutral, you can play stance heavy, you can play some string pressure, and so on. Whatever you choose, Negan will present himself as a strong character. As always, we'll start by recommending Applay. It's the best quick info resource out there. Once you start to get comfortable with Tekken and you want to pick up a character on the fly, there's nothing better than this. Okay, so Negan is a tough one for recommendations. He doesn't have any real loyalist high-level players, which isn't incredibly surprising given that he's brand new to Tekken and unlikely to return in future Tekkens given that he's a guest character. Pokechop is a name that comes to mind who gave Negan a solid run for a while. You can also find some sets with players like Knee and others that dedicate significant time to characters in order to learn them. Unfortunately, you'll be hard pressed to find that one really good player that consistently performs with Negan. I know that's not a great answer, but you have to work with what you have. So do some general YouTube searches and you'll certainly find something. This brings us to the end of our guide. Negan plays a very simple Tekken style and he's remarkably fun, so if you want something new to try out without having to break your brain, Negan is the way to go. He's not perfect, but his weaknesses are very specific and actually very few, so he's more well-rounded than a lot of people give him credit for, so there are plenty of opportunities to win. Keep at it, and I wish you the best of luck in your training. And with that, thanks for checking out this video. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications here on YouTube so that you get alerted when a new video drops. Twitch and Twitter links are also down below. Lastly, huge thank you to our patrons. The more support we have, the more resources we can devote to channel content. So again, I can't thank everyone enough for considering supporting the Patreon. Stay safe, everyone, and we'll catch you next time.